Welcome to TakeaSide, the sports talk show that lets you, the viewer, choose our winners. As always, be sure to get on Sided.co and the Sided Debates app to post your arguments for a chance to stand atop the Sided leaderboard and win a $25 Amazon gift card. Shout out to last week's winner, Mark Davis Jr., for his first win atop the Sided leaderboard. We've got a great show for you today featuring a special guest. But before we get to that, let's talk NFL football. 9 weeks into the NFL season, the NFC West has emerged as the NFL's best division. The Seattle Seahawks currently lead the division at 6-2, and with the Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams not far behind at 5-3. The San Francisco 49ers are also still in contention despite a number of key injuries as they sit at 4-5. I'm joined by Matt Minear and Marena Sever to debate who is the biggest threat to win the NFC West.
I think hands down the Arizona Cardinals are the biggest threat in the NFC West right now. And let's start by talking offense, because the Cardinals, and this is like my favorite thing that I've ever heard in my life, the Cardinals have the number one offense in the NFL right now. The number one offense. Seattle's number 3. Okay, I'll give them that. I'm not saying that Seattle doesn't have a good offense, but Arizona's number 1. And there's this great clip of Kyler Murray in a press conference where he's being told that, and he turns to talk to someone behind him, and he has to ask, is that real? And I kind of reacted the same way when I found out, but when you watch them play, it just makes sense. They average 422 yards a game. Kyler Murray is the biggest threat in the NFC West player-wise, I think, as well, because he's so hard to defend against. He's all over the pocket, and he's really great when they design runs for him, but where he's most dangerous is in those situations where he's scrambling. DeAndre Hopkins is a huge pickup. Kenyon Drake got hurt, but he's a great running back. Chase Edmonds has really emerged as a phenomenal running back on that team. Christian Kirk, great second receiver. They just offensively are a massive threat. I think that game against Seattle totally proved that, because they just really bested Seattle. They just do have that slight offensive edge, and they're the best offensive team in the NFL right now, and I think that's one of many reasons why they are easily the biggest threat in this division.
Yeah, I think if you look at both these teams, Seattle and Arizona, they're very similar on the offensive side of the ball. You have Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, who are almost similar, who can escape the pocket, run for 20 yards, or throw a 50-yard touchdown to one of the receivers. But I think the thing that highlights Seattle is they have one of the best receiving corps in the league, I think. You get DK Metcalf is an absolute monster,
right,
with Tyler Lockett, and even David Moore is underrated. So I think both these teams are very similar on offense, but I think also on defense, they're both not the greatest, to be honest. I think the weakness for both those teams is defense, and I think that the next game meeting between these two teams will really be probably an offensive show, I think, again.
Yeah, and I love that you bring up defense because that's a perfect transition. So after Seattle, actually, the Cardinals had the number 10 ranked defense in the league, and that's crazy to me as well. They were top 10, but still. Right now, after Tua ran all over him, they're 19 of 32. But it doesn't even matter, because guess who's dead last? Seattle. Seattle has the worst defense in the NFL right now. And the Cardinals, again, proved that when they played Seattle. You just see them get that edge. They were all over Russell Wilson. They were sacking him. Even without Chandler Jones, the D-line was all over him. They were pressuring him. They made him throw away. He threw 3 picks in that game sometimes it was because of pressure, sometimes it was just because I don't really know what he saw, and he just lobbed up a ball, and like that one that Budda Baker just snatched up, and then DK Metcalf inevitably tracked him down. I don't know what Russ saw when he threw that ball. And so, they just outplayed Seattle, and I think there's so many things about them that make them a threat. And when you talk about strength of schedule as well, the Cardinals, they lost to the Lions. Yeah, they lost to the Panthers. Miami yesterday, a whole different story. I could go on. That could be a separate debate about Zane Gonzalez and how he needs to get off that team. But when I start having heart attacks later in the regular season because of Zane Gonzalez, he's getting my medical bill, because it is absolutely because of him. He's cost us too much, but that's a different story. The Seahawks, they don't win the big games that they play. They've played 2 tough games so far, I would say, and that was against the Cardinals and the Bills, and they lost both of those games last week to the Bills. The Cardinals, again, lost to the Lions, lost to the Panthers, but they win their big games. They beat a full-strength 49ers team week 1. They beat Seattle simply because they outplayed them. They just did, and I think that's a difference, and going forward in the season, The Cardinals have a harder schedule too, so that will be interesting to see. Like they still have to play Buffalo and things like that, whereas the Seahawks get 4. Who do they get in a row? They get the Eagles, Giants, Jets, and Washington 4 weeks in a row, and those should be 4 easy weeks for them. And the Cardinals don't have that advantage. So I don't know why. I just don't really have as much faith in Seattle. I think their defense is, again, dead last in the league. They can't do anything. And Russ just, he's phenomenal, but he's not enough to be carrying that team on his own, and with the offense too. Talk about receiving core as well. I think the Cardinals are just about as even with them as it gets receiving wise as well.
Yeah, I think even though with a bad defense, I think in big games, I think Russell Wilson can carry them. He's so good. He's probably the leading candidate for MVP in my opinion. And he can just do so much. He's one of the smartest players in the game right now. And I think when it comes down to big games against divisional rivals, I think he can pull it out and get the win.
Yeah, it's fun to watch Kyler and Russ play against each other too, because they both played baseball. So they're very similar quarterbacks in that they're both mobile, and again, like you said, they are super accurate deep ball passers. But again, like when they do those runs and stuff, they slide the same way and they don't ever get hurt because it's just they're super just similar in that regard. And yeah, I don't know if we're talking the biggest threat in the NFC West. I just think the answer just has to be Arizona. You can't defend against Kyler Murray because you never know what he's going to do. DeAndre Hopkins is the best receiver in the league, top 3. I'll give it if you don't want to argue that. But there are just so many weapons to them. And again, if you're comparing Arizona, Seattle, neither team has a great defense. I wouldn't argue Arizona's defense against many teams in the NFL. But when it comes to Seattle being dead last defense, and even Arizona bests them there. So biggest threat, Arizona, I think, hands down.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun to watch these teams battle it out. Many years to come on, because Kyler Murray, he's so young. He's going to be amazing. And
yeah, I think it's going to be great, and they play again in a couple weeks, so that'll be another test to see
matchup.
Which one of these two teams comes out on top. But we're going to throw it over to a commercial, and we will be right back.
Welcome back. As I mentioned earlier, we have a very special guest on today's show. Joining us now by Zoom is Tyler Jones from 1320 KLWN. Tyler is also a senior contributor for NDN Sports and hosts his own podcast called The Jones Report. He'll be debating with TakeaSide's very own Emma House on who will win the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series.
All right, well, Tyler, thank you so much for being on the show today. We're so happy to have you. So let's just launch straight into it. NASCAR season just wrapped up with the Phoenix race ending on Sunday. Chase Elliott was the 2020 champion. His first champion, and he's among some of the youngest drivers to ever win the championship. His predecessor, Jeff Gordon, is one of those. So recap of the race just a little bit. It was actually a pretty boring race. It was more just going in circles, just like NASCAR does. But if you're Chase Elliott, it was pretty exciting. And also there was a lot of heartbreak following Martinsville with Kevin Harvick not making it, even though he was the regular series champion. That heartbreak of Chase Elliott winning when he was in a must-win situation and kicking Kevin Harvick out with the last-ditch Hail Mary of crashing Kyle Busch and trying to make it and still ending up not making it. But it was a pretty exciting season, pretty weird season with the little e-races that we have. There was some drama with Kyle Larson, being caught saying the N-word on a broadcast, not a NASCAR broadcast, but just one of the practices, and him being suspended from NASCAR. And then, is he coming back? Is he not coming back? And eventually, he is coming back. And so kind of just an odd season, yet here we are with a champion. So what are your thoughts on the season?
Well, I wanted to say first off, thanks for having me. And I intentionally wore my Clint Boyer shirt today to represent Emporia, Kansas. But looking back this past weekend, although Chase Elliott dominated the race for the most part. I think what you can say, what made it exciting was that the championship four all were up front, that they finished 1, 2, 3, 4, and any of those four had a chance to win the championship running up front. I think that was the best part of Sunday from a competition standpoint. But I look at Kevin Harvick as he was the guy to beat all season long, wins 9 races, dominated ever since they took away practice and qualifying when NASCAR returned from the pandemic. But then you fast forward to the way this season finished, he misses that Final Four, and I was feeling like, can you really crown a champion without Kevin Harvick being involved in the championship picture after being the guy to beat all season? But the way that Chase Elliott closed out this season, to win 3 of the last 5 races, including those final 2 races, that's what NASCAR is looking for in a champion. Somebody that will go out there when it matters most to take advantage of doing what it takes to win a title on the biggest stage. And Chase Elliott did just that. Great run by him. Finishes with 5 wins on the season. A well-deserved championship for Chase Elliott after what was just a wild NASCAR season. Certainly one that was unprecedented, the way that this one went, with midweek races to the shutdown to all that endured this season. It ended up being pretty successful.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a pretty exciting season, and I'm excited for next season. So talking about next season, I have a list of a couple of people who I think are going to be contenders. I'm assuming you have your list, have been formulating it for the whole season. So we can just go back and forth, and I have mine in no particular order. I don't know if you ordered yours, but I did want to special highlight Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's coming back for Hendrick Motorsports is number 5. They are bringing back the number 5, and I it's a hit or miss with me with Kyle Larson because I don't personally, I'm not happy with him coming back just because I think with all the drama and everything, but
Sure.
with professionally looking at it, I'm so excited that he's driving for Hendrick Motorsports. I think he's going to do great things with that team. What are your thoughts on him?
Oh, I love to see Kyle Larson come back to get that second chance. He did everything that was asked of him for that second chance. And Hendrick Motorsports, it always seemed like this is where he was going to end up at some point in his career. He'd always been tied to Jeff Gordon, and Jeff Gordon made it no secret that he wanted him at Hendrick Motorsports. And so it took some crazy circumstances for it to get to this point, but it feels like this is where he belongs, is at Hendrick. And comparing him to Chase Elliott, I think they're both very similar, very even when it comes to talent. And so I would expect that's only going to push Chase Elliott to run harder and the rest of his teammates, William Byron and Alex Bowman, to run better. Hendrick Motorsports has now the best young talent of anybody in the sport. I think Kyle Larson is due for a big year next year in his first year with Hendrick Motorsports. And we saw Hendrick, with Chase in particular, really improve this year, with everybody except Jimmy Johnson getting a win. I also look at next year. Denny Hamlin is going to come hungrier than ever to get that title that he came up short again. More wins than anybody in the history of the sport without a championship. He's getting close. Kyle Busch is not going to be held to just one win again. Kyle Busch is as talented as anybody in NASCAR right now. I think that he's going to bounce back and have a nice year next year. Those guys are certainly the ones to watch for in 2020, or in 2021 rather. But I think that we're due for another exciting season of great racing, in particular with some of the changes that were made, highlighted specifically with Kyle Larson there moving to the 5-car.
Now, I don't know if you agree with this statement, but I would say Christopher Bell is he's going to the 20 for JGR, and I think he's going to be kind of up there. I think we didn't really see him do a whole lot in the 95 this year, and I think we expected more, but I think with him moving to JGR and kicking Eric Jones out of the 20, basically, I think we're going to see a lot of spirit and fighting from him to kind of prove his place at JGR. And I also think Martin Truex Jr. might make a comeback. He only had 1 win this past season, but I think, he and Kyle Busch both had that string of bad luck, and I think that Martin is going to be able to get over that.
Yeah, I think Martin will have a nice year as well. He had a first-year crew chief Certainly that took some time to adapt after that successful run he had with Cole Pern as his crew chief for several years, winning a title and everything there. I would expect Martin Truex to bounce back and run really well. But in regards to Christopher Bell goes, first off, I didn't like them moving on from Eric Jones. Eric Jones had been in there 4 years, won 2 races, been to the playoffs 2 or 3 times. What more did they expect from him? He's actually younger than the guy that's replacing him in Christopher Bell. And don't get me wrong, I like Christopher Bell. I thought that his rookie season this year at Levine Family Racing went just fine. They don't have the resources that necessarily JGR does. But I think that Christopher Bell is going to have a good run in that 20 car. He's going to be very successful. In fact, I would be surprised if Christopher Bell does not get into victory lane and makes the playoff next year. I think that he's got that type of talent that he brings over that 20 car. I'm excited to see what he does in that ride as well. But probably the most interesting change that everybody's looking forward to seeing in 2020 is what Bubba Wallace does in the 2311 racing team that's headed up by Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin. This group, they're going to run Toyotas. They bought pretty much all of Levine Family Racing's stock cars from this past season. They're moving them over and running their operation there. Sponsorship is not an issue either. There's no reason to think that Bubba Wallace and his new team with Michael Jordan and company can't compete right away.
I think it'll be interesting to see if he performs well or just the same as he did at 43. But I think it's definitely going to be an exciting season. I'm excited. I'm sure you're excited. And I think everybody is looking forward to the new changes that we have. But I did want to thank you one last time for coming on the show. And we're looking forward to working with you more.
Hey, absolutely. Anytime, guys. Appreciate the work that you guys are doing, help representing KU and company, and always enjoy anytime we get to talk racing and motorsports. And should be a fun 2021. I'm excited for it. We're going to have to wait another year on the new car, but based on the results that we saw of 2020 with the racing, how exciting it was, I think we're due for a great 2021 as well. On to Daytona. February will be here sooner than we know it, guys.
It will. And we are going to throw it to break, and then we'll be right back.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas. A great place to be you.
Welcome back. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers suffered an embarrassing defeat Sunday night at the hands of the New Orleans Saints, losing by a score of 38-3. Bucs quarterback Tom Brady struggled throughout the contest, going 22 of 38 passing for 209 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He finished the night with a 3.8 quarterback rating. Despite the Bucs' 6-3 record on the season, many are calling into question Tom Brady's ability to compete among the league's best. Joining me now is Blake Sevenbergen and Maya Peterson to debate if Tom Brady's time among the NFL elite is coming to an end.
Yeah, as Jacob said, the Bucs, they had an abysmal 38-3 defeat on Sunday. Tom Brady looked absolutely atrocious. He was either sacked or throwing the ball to the wrong team almost all night. I think at this point in time, at Tom Brady's age, and where he's at in his career, although they're 6-3, they haven't beaten a ton of good teams except for Green Bay. They lost to an overrated Bears team, and their losses have been bad. They lost to the Saints twice, and they're just a team that looks like they may be good at times, but I think Brady is struggling to fit in this offense in Tampa Bay.
Wow, so you really hit me in the gut right there because I am a big Chicago Bears fan. So for you to say that was an overrated win, it's interesting. But to talk about that game actually right after Tom Brady came out and he said he needs a lot more from his O-line. I think in everybody's little competitions with quarterback, you have to bring it back to the O-line. If the O-line isn't good with protecting their quarterback, that's going to determine whether or not a quarterback is going to be successful or if they're going to fail. Right now, already in the season, Tom Brady has been sacked 13 times. With his New England Patriots, who we know has a great defense with Tom Brady, he was only sacked 27 times last year. So we can't really compare Tom Brady to be wasted or washed out if he doesn't have a good O-line. But what do you think actually makes him washed out?
See, I think line play isn't the struggle for the Buccaneers. On the right side of the line, first-round draft pick Tristan Wirfs has been the highest-rated right tackle for rookies in the league all season.
Okay.
And then I also think, in New England, Tom Brady in that offense with Bill Belichick, they fit in perfect. They meshed well, and they ran the football. Tom Brady is best running play action, deceiving defenses, and they only ran the ball 4 times on Sunday night. An NFL low ever from rush attempts in a game. And then, Tom Brady, he's on track to throw the ball this season more times than he ever has in a season in his career. And at 43 years old, I don't think he's got enough in the tank to throw the ball 700 times in a season.
Wow, well, he is right now at about a 65% completion rate compared to last season. With Bill Belichick, he had about 64%. So if we're comparing them, like you said, he's doing better. So if he's doing better and he doesn't have as many assets with this Bucs team, I still don't think he can be washed out. We can compare him to Drew Brees right now, and their stats are kind of the same, but Drew Brees has a better O-line. I think it comes down to the O-line. He doesn't know how to scramble as well, and it comes down to the team chemistry. He's not, like you said, not being able to mesh well with them, but 13 sacks, that doesn't even sound great, and we're barely halfway into the season. So
Yeah, and I would agree. He's been sacked a lot of times, but he also, last season, in the 2019 season, he threw a total of 8 interceptions. This year already, he already has 7 picks. While he is throwing the ball more, and he does have more weapons on offense, I think Tom Brady played better under the role of no one thinks that my team is good outside of me, and now everybody knows that he's got Godwin, he has Mike Evans, he has Gronk, he has weapons all over the field that are going to be successful, but I don't think Tom Brady is the right fit for an air raid offense. I think his play style, the pocket passer, is a thing of the past. I think mobile quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray are the future, and even older quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson can run around and improvise and make plays. Brady seems to be stuck in his ways where he gets in the pocket, and I think why he's being sacked so much is his inability to escape the pocket.
Yes, now I will give you that. He's not as versatile as he used to be, but we're comparing him to last year with, like you said, Bill Belichick, a lot of assets, and he was with them for 18 years. We can't try to say that just because he had this one game that was absolutely terrible against New Orleans is going to depict his whole entire season. He's still 6-3, still second in the South, and he might be somewhat of a playoff contender. He's not washed out. He's just learning a new system. And next year, hey, if this is one of the worst seasons Tom Brady has, he's going to come back and he's going to prove, like, I'm not washed out. I'm still MVP. I still can be in the top ranked. He's not washed out.
See, I would agree to the extent where he might be learning the new offense. But, in 18 years in New England, he won 6 rings.
Yeah.
And at 43 years old, why try to go and learn a new offense, a new system at this point in time where you know that you've been struggling already this year? Against the Saints week 1, he threw 2 interceptions in that game as well and didn't look great. So I think the problem is with Tom Brady, it's not learning a new offense or handling the new weapons that he has. I think that he's old. I think that his time has come to an end in the league, and that I think that the Bucs will be better off in a few years with a young quarterback with all the weapons that they have now.
Interesting. Well, it's going to be difficult to see how Tom Brady fares off for the rest of the season, but I am looking forward to seeing what he does in 2 to 3 years, because he's going to prove you guys wrong, and he's going to have an insane season next year.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it as well. Tom Brady, even though not a ton of people give him the respect he deserves as one of the best ever, he is a great quarterback, but I think that his time has come, and it'll be an interesting way to watch the rest of the season. And with that, we will throw it back to Jacob.
Well, that's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us. As always, get on Sided.co and the Sided Debates app for your chance to stand atop the Sided leaderboard. Also, be sure to follow TakeaSide KU on Twitter and Instagram for more exclusive TakeaSide content. We'll see you next week with a special NBA Draft edition of TakeaSide. For all of us here, I'm Jacob Polacheck, and we'll see you next week.